Good day, everyone, and welcome to this pre-recorded information session. My name is Dr. Tinesha Parbu, and I am delighted to introduce today's presentation. We are joined by our esteemed speaker from the US, Mr. Mark Sussman. Many of you should be already quite familiar with Mark as he has attended the last two SADA congresses. But for those who may not know him, Mark is the founder, president, and managing director of Dental Recycling International. During this session, Mark will be sharing important insights on compliance with the Mercury regulations and provide more detail on the partnership between SADA and DRI SA. Although the session has been pre-recorded, we still encourage you to engage with the content, and you can contact either Mark or myself by email should you have any questions or require clarification. I'm now going to hand over to Mark.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate the opportunity and look forward to sharing this information and to being a valuable resource as your members analyze and move forward in complying with this regulation. So the title of today's course is Complying with the National Environmental Management Act, Myths and Truths About this Regulation. And before we go into the detail, there's a lot of misinformation about the regulation, which we hope today to address and make it more easier for all your members to be able to comply. So we'll go on the first slide. Regulatory objectives and goals. Some may ask, what is the history of this regulation established in South Africa? And it relates to the Minamata Convention on Mercury, of which South Africa is a signature. And this is regarding a incident in Japan a long time ago where there was mercury contamination. And this agreement was established by the UN to simply reduce mercury in the environment. I think all of us share a concern for the environment and especially understand the toxic effects of mercury on public health. And therefore, this is why this treaty developed. So why South Africa became a signatory and why the new regulation is in effect. Key requirements. So the point of it is, before we go into this, there's a little confusion because last year in February of 25, the DFFE came out with this regulation, which established the need for amalgam separators and for addressing all amalgam containing, obviously, the mercury in the environment to make sure it doesn't leave the dental office. Shortly after it came out in February 25, the regulation was pulled back and it said it had to be tabled in the Parliament, which obviously was confusing. SADA was very beneficial in communicating to its dentists. There's this kind of hold until it happened again. And then the regulation was republished and made effect on March 31st, 2025. And so there's a lot of misinformation. Was the regulation pulled? What happened to it? But the point was it is in effect and went in effect in March 31st, 2025. And there are various aspects to it. The first aspect is that from March 31st, 2025 to March 31st, 2026, all dental offices had to put in an amalgam separator. It didn't state the efficiency, left it to the dentist. However, on April 1st, 2026, which is coming up shortly, the dental office must have an amalgam separator at 95% efficient, which is the ISO standard. So it kind of said you can put in a less efficient amalgam separator in between March 31st, 2025 and 2026. And then after April 1st, 26, you had to put in this ISO standard separator. Obviously, that made no sense. So the point is that everyone was proceeding with an ISO standard, but that also made the market, I think, confusing. Is my requirement April 1st, 2026 instead of March 31st, 2025? The other aspect to it is that there's mercury coming from amalgam in the large particles. So if you think of teeth with amalgam, or you think of these vacuum traps, all the solid waste, and they must be collected as well. So there really are two parts of compliance. One is the amalgam separator, and one is the chairside amalgam product. All this is on the SADA link, the DRI SA SADA link, which explains it in more detail. So again, kind of what I just referred to, myth one, to make this more specific. The regulation is effective April 1st, 2026, with the 90% effective amalgam separator. The truth. The regulation, as I stated earlier, is effective March 31st, 2025, and the compliance documentation is due March 31st, 2026. And this is a really big point that we want to address. Obviously, this regulation is in place. I think most members of and dentists in South Africa want to comply, but that ultimately is the choice of any practice. The regulations in South Africa are a lot more onerous than we've seen around the world and our business in the United States and other international markets, in that there's a $5 million fine for non-compliance. We have provided all our customers the documentation is required in less than 90 days. Documentation is required by March 31st, 2026. And that is excuse me, what the dentist has to submit to the DFFE. So that is the key aspect of this regulation. What happens after March 31st, 2026, in terms of where DFF goes, no one knows. But the regulation is on the books, and if other international markets are to look at, typically these agencies pick a few individuals, unfortunately make an example of, to tell the market they're here to enforce the regulation. But the point of this webinar is to provide you with the facts. And the facts are that on March 31st, 2026, every dental office in South Africa is required to submit to the DFFE documentation that they are in compliance with this regulation. Myth two, the DFA will not be enforcing this regulation, so don't need to comply. The truth is the DFA is implementing a requirement of an international treaty called the Miyamata Treaty. And the interesting thing is that the government just issued a draft in the Gazette of a more broader regulation on the environment for various pollutants. So for my 25 plus years of experience, what I can say is that these regulations are not just put on the books for show. They are serious. And the question is, it's like risk. It's like, do you pay your taxes? I think it's in the same category. If you want to take the risk and not comply, that's obviously an individual's choice. But given the onerous fines, we think it is in everyone's interest to comply. But again, that's an individual choice. But we want to outline the risk involved if you do not comply. So here are the truth from an informational point to understand what noncompliance means. Chapter 8, Section 12 lists the penalties for noncompliance. The first is a person convicted of an offense in terms of Regulation 11, which is the regulation which discusses the use of the separator and the chairside product, is liability. So the first conviction is a fine of 5 million rand or an imprisonment of 5 years, and then goes on to talk about the second offense and so on. The point is, this is not here to scare you or any way to do that. The point is that this is the facts, and it's simply the fact that compared to the cost of compliance, non-compliance from an economic point of view is not even an option. So we just want to lay out the information for you, and hopefully you'll choose both on a moral issue to keep mercury out of the environment and just simply on a practical issue that the risk of non-compliance is way too risky from an economic point of view as well, and that it makes sense to get to the DFA this compliance information before March 31st, 2026. Myth 4, compliance is cumbersome and expensive. The truth, the DRISA is right a simple, cost-effective solution. In my 25 years of doing this, there's always a point always in environmental business of what is practical and what is just not economically practical. And I think in the history of environmental compliance, if you make the solution practical and within cost reason, you see very high compliance. If you make it unreasonable, very onerous for the person who's complying, then compliance is much more difficult. So no, with this information, we approached SADA many years ago, and the leadership was very responsive to both one wanting to give a solution to their members at the most economical cost, very concerned about the rising cost of overhead for dental offices, not only in South Africa but around the world. And the idea is, how do you make compliance the most reasonable, cost effective, less burdensome for SADA members, and obviously a solution in the market where the vendor can obviously come to the market where they can make money and a return on investment. And we in SADA came up with a really good program that I think meets both goals. And this is the program that exists today. So, for example, on the first compliance is that you have to have an amalgam separator, and obviously April 1st, 2026, it's a ISO separator, and as we discussed, it makes no sense to put in less of a ISO approved separator now and then change it on April 1st. So obviously you're interested in installing one that's fully compliant. And so for office that has 1 to 7 chairs, that's our BU10, and that would retail with no discount for 20,000 rand, and our BU 1030 is for chairs in larger practices. Mostly this is for public sector dental schools. Would retail for 30,000 rand. However, we have established a special opportunity with SADA, which is much more, reasonable than these costs and the retail cost, and this is what the costs are today. So basically, we have two options for how we proceed. So basically, if you go on this SADA link and you sign up, you will face the following cost. The first is the installation. We have actually two options today. The installation cost is 6,975 through Wrights Dental, but we've also done another opportunity with Isodent, so they're a new partner of DRI SA as well. These prices can change depending on location, but that's between you and either Wrights or Isodent in terms of their service office. But they've given us some really good quotes that I think the market has found currently very acceptable. So in terms of going forward, BU10 customers currently will pay for the service 7,650 Rand per year plus 5,000 Rand for the initial part of the service cost is the equipment, and that is for a total of 12,650 Rand, which actually includes both the amalgam separator and the annual fee for the amalgam kit. And this is based on a 3 or 5 year service contract, so you're sure there's no increase in prices. For the BU 1030 customers, again, a small part of the market, mostly public sector and large institutions, but there could be clinics, institutional groups that have the need for this. That cost is 12,750 Rand for the amalgam separator and 5,000 Rand for the chair side amalgam kit for a total of 1,775 a year. And again, this pricing is locked in for 3 to 5 years so that you have no concern about prices going up year to year, getting back to my point of trying to provide the best economical cost. The total value of the equipment is 25,000 plus. So there's a significant savings here, and all these costs are effective through March 31st, 2026. And as soon as you sign up and get the installation, DRISA provides you the compliance support, which is exactly what you need for the DFFE to provide. So here's an example to summarize on terms of the cost, because again, there's a lot of confusion sum up of what the costs are. So you initially go to the link, you start and sign up, and the amount that you will pay Wrights or Isodent, our new partner, will be 6,975 Rand for the installation, plus an initial service fee of 7,500 Rand. You will not get another invoice till 12 months later. And 12 months later, either Rights or Isodent will come out and change your amalgam separator for you, and that's a service fee, which you can discuss with them, or you can do it yourself. And you will get an invoice for 12,650 Rand from us, um, and so on for invoice two and invoice three to five. So this way you can plan your cost. We think these are pretty reasonable costs given the services being provided. And again, it isn't an escalating cost. We know they're going to double, triple, and you're saying, well, this is a real concern for me in terms of complying. It's set fees, it's locked in, you know what's happening in the future, and we think it's the best solution on the marketplace. So we've decided, let's just look at some frequently asked questions so we can address any concerns that an office has, any misunderstandings. Again, we understand there's been some confusion in the past, and our purpose here today is to provide answers to all your questions that you may have concerning this issue. What do the new regulations require for my dental practice? And as we discussed before, as of March 31st, 2025, this regulation has been in place. So for those who do not have an amalgam separator today or are not collecting their amalgam larger particles and solid waste, that stuff is entering the environment, please know that you are at risk, that if you get a random inspection, you will be potentially fined. Again, that's not here to scare you. It's here to provide you simply the fact and information of the situation. Uh, we don't know if the DFA is going to do that in the next month, in the next week, or they're going to wait to after March 31st, 2026 to see who has submitted the compliance information and who has not. So that's kind of from the regulatory point of view. We often get the question, does my office need to apply if we don't place amalgam anymore? Really good question. And the answer is yes. Most of what it actually we recycle and collect is coming from patients who are changed or taking out the amalgam through a number of dental procedures. We all know that the amalgam is going down in terms of usage. There's this whole Miyamata treaty is about to phase out. So this regulation is not about taking concern about people who are placing amalgam and taking the excess amalgam. The regulation, really, both in South Africa and the whole Miyamata Treaty, which is global, is about capturing the amalgam, i.e., the mercury, that is coming from patients' mouths who've had this for a long time. So obviously, this is where 85% of what we collect and dispose of is coming out of patients' mouths versus the new amalgam being placed in. That said, there is still use of amalgam in the marketplace, but again, it's about preventing the mercury via the amalgam from getting in the wastewater and getting in the solid waste. That's what this regulation is all about. Is installation free? No. Again, we have these partnerships with Right Dental, and we just recently did the one with Isodent, so we want to add that to this exciting opportunity. So now you have another choice. And the price has been negotiated at 6,975, which we believe is a very fair price. Obviously, if it's a far distance or something, that's this discussion between the practice and the installer. But we have worked hard to be able to get the best technicians and service people, and we're very happy what we've seen in the marketplace to date. And therefore, you have a great opportunity to have really good installers to make sure the equipment from the get-go is installed properly and working. Do I need to use rights if I have my installer? We strongly suggest to our customers to use people that we have verified and know what they're doing. Obviously, Rights has been tested in terms of their working with their installers. We've done the same with Isodent. So we feel very confident, and we've seen the results are very confident of these two very fine companies. We're not going to say no to, of course, if you want your own installer, but that, again, is want to make sure that person really knows what they're doing. And if we haven't had a relationship with them, that's really harder. So we think it's in your best interest, given the prices are very competitive, to use a recommended DRISA installer for someone else. But ultimately, that's your decision. How do I enroll in the program? And as we said earlier, if you simply go on the page, which is listed here, and complete the online registration form, you will move the process forward and you will receive a confirmation from DRISA that you're enrolled, and then you'll be contacted by RITES or ISODENT in terms of the installation. We've had a tremendous success. Again, the initial marketplace that RITES has installed, very, very good compliments on their technicians, very positive feedback on the price structure. So we think we have a really good program in place to continue the progress with DRISA and its partners. And obviously, this whole program has been put together by SADA in its interest for its members to be both compliant and to get the best economical cost on the marketplace. When is my first recycling fee due? Your first recycling fee is only 12 months, is due 12 months after you sign the agreement if you would enroll in January 2026. So your invoice will be due in January 2027. Another good part of the program is that in the initial cost that you're bearing is just the installation and the initial payment, which is part of the service fee, and the bulk of the payment is not being billed for 12 months later. Again, an opportunity to pace out these costs to make it more affordable to be in compliance. How many units do my office need? Most practices need one amalgam separator per suction. And again, our BU 10 unit is 1 to 7 chairs, and our BU 1030 unit is 8 to 16 chairs. In conclusion, we at DRISA did not make this regulation. We're here to assist you to comply with the regulation. This is simply what has happened in this marketplace, and we're here a solution. I got involved in this business in 1998 because my previous activity in the environment, and have been doing this for 27 years, both in the US and around the world. And I often say to the dentist, our goal is to assist those who are to comply. And that's really what it is, to assist, again, those people that want to say, this is the right thing to do. I really have no option. I want to do this in the most economical way. And this is what it's all about. We're very thankful for finding a great partner with SADA, and under the leadership of them, we have been able to offer this program to the marketplace and look forward to continuing to be successful and with our SADA partnership, and with all, and being able to assist all the dentists in South Africa and members of SADA in providing this solution. We're here now to answer any of the questions and here to assist you in any way we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm glad that you went through a refresher from start to finish, because I think that's going to be very helpful for people who might have seen one of the older webinars last year and just needed, a bit of a refresher on the nitty-gritties and the details before they sign up. So, I'm glad that you also said that the regulation is not imposed by DRI. And I think in the same breath, we must also reinforce that the regulation is not being imposed by SADA either. This is, a Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment regulation, because of South Africa being a signatory to the Minamata Treaty. So, we just doing our best for our members to be able to comply with these regulations, and obviously at the lowest possible cost, but also what suits their practice circumstances, etc., the best. It's also key, I think, for people to understand that the dental sector is the only sector really that works with mercury that is subject to a phase down, whereas many of the other industries in South Africa have been subject to a complete phase out. And this includes like certain lights that contain mercury, batteries, the mining industry, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, etc. So there's a whole bunch of industries that have been negatively affected. And dentists are quite fortunate in that, it hasn't been a hard stop on amalgam. It has been a gradual phase down, obviously because owing to the economics of the country, but just also for practitioners to be able to transition out of using amalgam. I think it's really important that you also clarified the date, because there has been a lot of confusion with respect to the 1st of April 2025 versus the 1st of April 2026. So maybe just to reiterate, the 1st of April is 2026 is the date by which an amalgam separator with a 95% retention level or efficiency must be installed. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a little confusing. So as of March 31st, 2025, when the regulation went into effect, so after March 2025, which is, been 10 months from today, in theory, every practice in South Africa should have an amalgam separator. It didn't have to be 95% efficient, but
Mm,
have to have an amalgam separator. But as
yeah.
of April 1st, 2026, that unit has to be 95% efficient, which is the ISO standard.
Right. Okay. That's clear now. I see you also mentioned an additional partner now for the installation, in addition
Right.
to rights. So I just
Yes.
want to clarify, you said, is it Estrodent that you're referring
Estrodent.
to?
Yes, I'm probably pronouncing it maybe wrong. It's
Okay.
Estrodent. Yes.
I
I
heard
think
you
I
say
I
Isodent and I was a
I
bit
think that
confused.
it's Estrodent. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, how does it work now? If I sign up, do I get a choice of who my installer is going to be, or is it automatically allocated to me?
So basically, Estrodent is doing it for its customers. So if you're a customer of Estrodent today, you will get it would be the same. It's the same link, but that it would be an Estrodent service technician that would provide you with the and the quotes the same. If you sign up just generally on the current normal site, you'll get the option from you'll get an email from Rights.
Okay, so there's a specific link that you can sign up with Estrodent
Yeah,
directly
right,
to get the
exactly.
amalgam separator deal, as
Yes,
opposed to the DRISA website where you can then sign up and automatically have
right.
rights as the
It's
installer.
just it's just done to Istradent. So it's basically Istradent it's SADA members who may use Istradent service can now have their Istradent service people do it for them as well.
Okay, but the cost of installation is the same for both companies?
Same cost. Yeah, we negotiated
Okay,
the same cost.
and the contract fees also still remain the same.
The same, exactly. No
Okay.
increasing pricing whatsoever.
Okay. And then I see you also mentioned that there was at this moment there's a 7,500 rand fee that needs to be paid up front.
Right.
So can you perhaps clarify if this fee is going to increase at any point before the 31st of March deadline, or is it going to remain at that 7,500
It
for
stays the same.
anyone?
It stays the same 7,500 till March 31st, 2026.
Okay, and then what happens on the 1st of April?
We haven't decided yet, so we're trying to
Oh,
we're trying to get as many people to take advantage of the low cost as possible. So we don't know, but I think it's economically in everyone's interest to sign up before March 31st, 2026.
okay. And then in terms of one of your slides, in terms of amalgam removals, because you said that for those practices that don't place amalgam restorations, they still need to be compliant because of amalgam restoration removals,
Yes,
etc.
yes.
Um, However, in the case of a practice that doesn't place amalgam and then would need to, or chooses to rather refer their patients that have amalgam restorations out of the practice. So that would mean extractions, it would mean crown prep or restoration redos, etc. In that case, I'm assuming that they would not need to have the amalgam separator installed.
Yes, as I understand it, and I think we get this question, as I'm sure you may too. We always say to refer it to, because we're not the government, to refer it to DFFE directly in an email or a letter. But we assume, the regulation says every practice in South Africa has to have this amalgam separator and amalgam chair side. But if you make the argument that I'm not taking out any amalgam, why would I have the product, right? So, yes, if you say to your practice, I'm never going to do amalgam, take it out amalgam, never do any restorations, as you state, that would seem a good argument not to have to do it. but we're not in
Yes.
that position to, to tell
To
anyone
answer.
we don't want to get in a
Yeah.
position. So you really need to get a definition from a letter, confirmation from the DFFE. And that obviously relates to practical experience that if a patient comes and does work, you cannot do it, right? So it's kind of like you
Yes.
can't be, half pregnant, not half pregnant. So it's a slippery road, and again, that's why we tell people you have to evaluate the
Yeah.
cost of compliance versus all these other things, because at the end of the day,
Yes.
you might have a patient that can give you a lot of, wants a lot of dental work, and
Yes.
it's a good thing, and you can't do it because, and then you say, oh my God,
You're losing out.
I'm
Yes.
losing out economically to do it. So these are all the factors you need to take in. A lot of this becomes an emotional issue. We understand I've been at this a long time. I'm being burdened, a regulation. I spend
Mm.
my practice, I don't want to practice anymore. I have all these costs. But when you get rid of the emotion and try to break it down, we think it's easier and then it's not, I think the better word is it's not so overwhelming as people
Mm.
might think. And that I think, together we've done a good job in providing a solution that reduces the overwhelmingness of this and makes it pretty simple to just move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I'd like to talk a little bit about the recycling and well, I think it's termed recycling, but it's actually the safe disposal of
Yeah, safe
amalgam.
disposal is a very good word. Yes.
Right. So we were in contact with one of the companies that does the safe disposal. I think it's the company that's contracted to DRISA as well, part of the program offering.
Right.
And we were also told by this company that they are the only one that is actually accredited to perform waste management when it comes to dental amalgam. And this is accredited now by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries, and the Environment. So to our understanding, at this point in time, they are the only company really that is allowed to do this disposal of the amalgam. Can you perhaps speak to that at all?
Yeah, it's because around the world, to basically dispose of the amalgam waste, you have to have a retort.
Yes.
And what the retort does is it separates the precious metals from the mercury that take it out. So the amalgam has is a retort. And because mercury is just a product that's been less used around the world, it ends up that still like four facilities, believe it or not, around the world that have this
Mm.
retort. This retort product is millions of dollars and multi-millions of rand. And there's one this company aside for I guess for business they had or what other other issues they had in that it was economically worth for them to do this in South Africa. So they invested in this retort. As far as we know, there's one in Switzerland. A big international company has one in Switzerland, and there are two or maybe three. I think two or only two or three in the United States. So
Okay.
it's just a rare investment of dollars. And one of the reasons we came to South Africa is because we knew we had a solution for a
Mm.
company to do this. Because if you don't, you have to export the waste, which is gets into a whole other complicated, expensive way to do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So we're
Okay.
very thrilled to find this partner in South Africa.
Okay. So that means that any other, let's say, a company or other than this one here that actually offers a recycling or waste management service wouldn't be recognized then by the DFFE, since this company is officially accredited.
Yeah, I mean, what we do is we provide, the company provides us with a certificate of disposal, which we
Okay.
then provide, which we know is done correctly. And
Yes.
then we provide our customers with a DRISA certificate of compliance listing
Okay.
where it was done. And then they submit that to the DFFE, which is kind of to my earlier point, the DFFE by March 31st, 2026, all of the current customers to DRISA will have submitted, at least they tell us they are submitting, and I'm sure they will, because the purpose of doing it, their forms to the DFFE, which
Yeah.
means the DFE can just see, well, who has done it and who hasn't done it. So
Yeah.
that's why it's not such an onerous, point. People say, well, it's very, very busy. The DFA doesn't have that much time and I got to research all this. Well, it's not really that hard because you can just see which dentists submitted the form, which haven't.
Right.
But to your point, that form will list that the waste, both from the amalgam separator and the chairside product, have been properly disposed of by this
Okay.
accredited facility.
And I'm assuming that that report also would include proof of installation of the amalgam separator, which you will supply, and then evidence of the recycling, which I'm hearing that you would supply that, or it would also come directly from the waste management company as well as a
No, they
certificate
can,
of.
I mean, anyone wants it, we have the backup, but with the way the process works is the waste management company provides it to us, and then we
Okay.
provide it to our customer, because that's the contractual relationship between us and the customer.
Okay, and then would this happen now on an annual basis? Because it
Yes.
says in the regulations the report must be submitted by the 31st of March of each year.
Yes, absolutely. So when the dentist gets installed, we send them a separate certificate of the certificate installation, and
Mm-hmm.
that they can immediately submit to the DFFE immediately
Right,
to
right.
know that they've installed. The disposal certificate is not due to March 31st, 2026, the first one, right?
Yes.
So basically, if you took a scenario, our current customers who signed up for the on the SADA link, they got installed. We sent them the certificate. They sent that into the DFFE, and then by March 31st, they're saying, because what happens is that, for example, let's just say someone's got installed today, which is, I believe, the 20th, right? Today's January 20th. Um,
19th.
19th, a long day, but 19th. Today's 19th, right? 19th. So installed today on the 19th. They will have submitted, we will install it on the 19th. Within a week, they'll get a certificate installation from DRISA. They will submit that to DFFE to show that they've in compliance. But remember, their waste will now be recycled to January 19th of 2027. So, and
Correct.
the 27 report, they will provide the disposal report. They will not have any disposal in this first reporting, but they will have the certificate that they installed it within the time frame.
Okay, so 1 year later, so I mean 19th of January 2027, what if I have only accrued a very small amount of amalgam?
Well,
Does
it
that
doesn't
still
matter.
meet
Yeah,
the
on the
volume?
separator, yeah, any amount, any mercury needs to be disposed of. So on the way the ISO testing works on the technology is ISO says you have to recycle the unit within a certain period of time. So to get the ISO certification, we have to demonstrate that the unit be recycled every 12 months at the
Okay,
maximum, right? So
okay.
that takes care of the separator. And the regulation requires an annual recycling of the disposal of any waste, right? So that once any waste that you've collected in in your practice within a year's period, you have to demonstrate that it's been properly disposed of.
And then would that include the waste? It's obviously the waste in the separator itself, but there's also the larger particles that are in the
Yes,
chairside bucket.
right.
So does that bucket get replaced? I'm
Yes.
assuming that it gets thrown away and then it needs to be replaced again every year.
Yes, that's why it's an annual service. That's what the contract is. It's an annual service.
Okay.
So we're providing a service to make sure that no mercury gets into the environment. You're in full compliance, and they get actually the certificate they get shows the disposal of both, right? So when we're disposing of both, so they'll get a certificate that shows the amalgam separator was properly recycled, and they'll show that the amalgam bucket was recycled. So it's both a wastewater issue and a solid waste issue.
Okay. And then also in terms of, like this, especially we get a lot of this question, especially in the smaller, more, I wouldn't say rural, but the smaller towns in South Africa where there are perhaps five practitioners in a 10 or 20-kilometer radius of each other. Um, and, if each one only has accumulated a very small amount of amalgam, I understand you saying that, the ISO standard says that it has to be done 12 monthly. But it is an expensive process as well to have
Right.
this waste recycled on an annual basis. So would it be an option for practitioners to maybe put the waste like together almost and have one recycling done for all of
Right.
the waste so as to just save a bit on the costs?
Yeah, I think on the chair side they can do that, and that's definitely an option. Is that you maybe have five practices in a row area by the amalgam container, and then one keeps it, and then the others just create another another you know
Buy
source or
another
something.
bucket
But
or
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
whatever it is, and then bring it all together. The problem with the separator is, remember, it's a wastewater issue. So if you don't have the unit and you have a system, there's just no way to, to collect it, right? You'd literally have to collect all your water, right? And that would
yeah.
be way,
Okay,
way more
I understand.
expensive.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
you're,
impossible to do.
it's
Yeah,
almost like what happens is in parts, at least in the United States, is that when someone wants to, in addition to before there's, say, the regulation, and they would come in and they'd find the dental office was admitting too much mercury into the wastewater. They didn't need the
yeah.
regulation to do that. They would just basically say, you can't come into our sewer system. So you'd have to collect all your waste and then find a company that would take all the water and recycle.
Okay,
So you're talking about an incredible amount of money. So
right.
that's why this separator is so much cheaper, because if someone said, okay, we're just not letting you come into the sewer, then the costs are extra, it just sky high. So that's why
Mm,
this is, so that's kind of the same example here, is that you do not want these rural practices not to be able to go into the sewer, because the
right,
cost would be significant. But they can reduce
right.
it on the chair side. No
On the
question.
bucket.
On the bucket,
Okay.
yeah.
And then just on the recycling, do you have any idea what the cost involved is? And also, I'm assuming it doesn't really have anything to do with the volume of amalgam that has been generated in the separator. It's probably like a standard cost for it, a specific size of
Yeah.
separator. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. A good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have any idea on what that costing is like
Costing of
of the actual disposal of the amalgam?
what our costs are.
No, no, no. So, what the waste management company would charge the practitioner to be able to dispose of the amalgam on an annual basis.
I have no idea. I have no
Okay,
idea on that.
so that we would need to contact that company
Mhm.
directly.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And there's no recycling fee that is included in the contract.
In our contract?
Yes.
Well, no, that's 7650 is the total service fee for the recycling and the disposal.
Okay, so what I'm asking is, are the practitioners required to pay extra when the waste is being recycled, or is that inclusive in
Oh
that
no, it's inclusive,
subscription
totally
fee?
inclusive.
It's
There's
okay.
no other cost, totally inclusive. Compliance,
Okay, okay.
transportation, everything's complete inclusive.
Okay, so okay, that makes a lot more sense now. All right.
Yes.
Um, And then also my understanding of when the separator actually goes to this company for the waste management, it can take a period of time because they need to accumulate a certain volume of amalgam before the disposal can take place with the technology that they have.
Right.
So it does take a period of perhaps 2 to 3 months or 3 to 4 months or whatever it may be for them to do that and then clean the separator, return it to the practitioner. During that time, it is the responsibility of the practitioner then to have an amalgam separator or a replacement amalgam separator in place. So does your service offer that, and is that
Yeah, yeah.
inclusive
So
of
yeah.
that?
So what happens is good, good questions, doctor. Um, so what happens is, in 12 months' time, the installer will rights or our new partner will
Estrodent, yeah.
a student will come out to take out the old one. When they take out the full separator, they
Yeah.
install the new one. So
Okay.
our customers are never ever, very important point, never ever without an amalgam separator
Without one.
on
Okay.
contract. And the only reason the only reason it may take a little longer now is the volume, right? So because
Yes.
we're in early, we have a lot, we're very pleased to have hundreds of customers, but we are seeing an uptake. And like we said, no one knows what happens after March 31st, 2026. I mean, a really good
Yeah.
point is, what happens if the DFE sends out a letter to every person they haven't have a certificate with and saying you have 10 days to comply or you get a
Yeah.
5 million rand. We probably won't have the capacity to install quick enough for that. So
Yeah.
what happens, however, is I think we all can say that over the next couple of years, and probably in a shorter time, you're going to see a hockey kind of a hockey stick of more and more
Uptake.
clients,
Yeah.
uptick of clients. When we get more uptick, we have more waste coming to the facility, and that will shorten the time of the recycling. So our goal is really even
Mm.
now is to turn this around in 30 days. I think and then that may be take a little longer as we get less people, because remember the installation dates can always vary, right? So if you have a huge, let's just say in the month of March of 2026, we get a huge uptick because of the compliance day coming up. That means in March 27, we'll have a much more influence of the units coming in with waste, right? So
Yes.
you'll see a quicker turnaround because we'll have more material to immediately recycle in the retorts.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So for now, it may be 3 to 4 months, but that might reduce to
Yeah, I mean,
perhaps
four
even a
months
month.
is 4 months is long. I mean, I would
Yeah.
think 2 to 3 months would be the outliner, and 2 months is probably more of an average,
Is
right?
it? Okay.
Right.
Okay. Um, I think it's for our members, it's key that you understand that, DRI is one of the companies that is offering this. There are other suppliers on the market that you can access. They're not offering the turnkey solution, but however, they are offering amalgam separators separately, and then waste management will have to be done separately. So the final obligation really is in the choice. Well, it's the choice of the practitioner to decide, whether they are going to do any amalgam in their practices, including removal of amalgam, placing amalgam, and even extracting teeth that contain amalgam. Then that would necessitate an amalgam separator installation. If there's none of that happening, okay, you don't need to have the amalgam separator installed. However, if there is even like an inkling of a little bit of adjustment of a restoration even happening, then that releases mercury into the water line, and therefore into the environment, and thus they would need installation of the separator. And if you decide not to do that and still do the amalgam restorations, etc., then that's a risk, unfortunately, that you would take. And the penalties, like you mentioned, Mark, are quite heavy in that they mention could be up to 5 million rand in penalties, and they speak of jail time as well. So it's not really a risk that we recommend anyone to take. Have you had like similar experiences in other countries?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing. What we have is it's just like any regulation. I mean, I think I don't know about how it's in South Africa, but in the U.S., I would think the worst thing anyone could do, anyone can want, is have a letter or a call from what's called our Internal Revenue Service, the IRS. The
Yes.
thought of getting contacted by the IRS is like puts just it's like the ninth rail, right? So
Right.
everyone that's why it's the risk of these things. Like that's why what drives compliance, right? Does
Yes.
the agencies, the tax authorities have the ability to visit all these people? No. But most people just sleep better at night knowing that. This is really very much similar, although I must say again, South Africa wanted to make it more like an IRS issue where they put these much more onerous fines than anyone else did, right? So we've seen that in the US and other countries where all they do is take an example of one or two people, word gets out, and that's because they just don't have the resources to visit all these dental offices. And that's really what we're here to talk about, right? For the person that
Mm.
doesn't believe in that, that thinks they're never going to get inspected and doesn't have that moral concern about of course,
The
every
environment, yeah.
environment, or first do no harm, which is
Mhm.
the oath of the dentist do. We're not there to change their minds. We have a different point of view, both morally and compliance will do. But we think the overwhelming majority of people want to sleep better. They do not want to risk from an economic point of view. Just from an economic point, it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
they'll look for the best solution and they'll comply. And I think if you once you move into that realm of yes, it doesn't make sense. I believe in this. We have many people that forgetting even the regulation, customers who just firmly believe that as a health professional, I want to do this, and yet I want to do it's a reasonable cost. I wasn't going to do it at 4 times the cost if I didn't have to. But it's a reasonable cost. I believe in it, and it's compliance, and that's what I really commend the leadership of SADA in trying to find that. And we are thrilled that we were able to bring a proposal that met those requirements. And we're seeing in the marketplace, we're seeing, our increase of customers. But that's the winning solution. You have to offer an economical, easy solution and comply. But to get back to the other point, it just doesn't make sense. But we think there's at least 80%, I believe 80% of your members, 80% of the marketplace subscribes a thing. Let's sleep better at night. This is the right thing to do. I want to
Yeah,
comply. And they're just
yeah.
looking for the right information. People are busy in their practices and it takes time. But, time goes on and March 31st is a deadline. And what the DFA will do after that for those who they haven't received the compliance with, we don't know here sitting on January 19th. But from my 27 years experience, they didn't put this on the books just to basically say, oh, those who want to comply, do it at your will, and those who don't, we don't care. There will be action. And we suggest that people, take that in consideration in making their choices.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, that's really all the questions that I had from my own curiosity and just members' questions that we've received over the last couple of months. However, if there are any other questions, any member has a question, please feel free to email me. My email address is clinical@sada.co.za, or you can email Mark directly as well. And, just pose the question to us. We'll try our best to get the answer to you. And yeah, I think it's just about establishing as much compliance as possible within the regulation that, sort of we've been dealt at this point. Mark, any last words before we close off the session?
Yeah, I was to say, well, we're going to be in Cape Town in August, and we look forward
Yes.
to doing that. And we have we're bringing our vice president of clinical affairs with us, and he's teaching a number of seminars on this topic and others.
Oh,
And
great.
and so his name is Dr. Al Frost, and he'll be there. And bring another sales associate with us. And I'm also working with your leadership to teach an interesting course on another potential waste that's coming to South Africa and the world in this exciting area of 3D printing. So, which
Yes.
is a growing area as well. So, we look forward to sharing that with your members and having another opportunity to attend the Congress in Cape Town this year. Very exciting.
That's awesome. Yes, I think the last two congresses that you've attended have been in, I think it was
Pretoria and
Pretoria,
Durban. And
Durban.
Durban.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we save the best for last, right?
Yes.
Cape Town is
Yeah.
always a crowd puller.
Yeah. It's great.
Thank you so much, though, for your presentation today and, just being open to help our members. We are very grateful. And perhaps you could just reiterate your email address for anyone that might want to get in contact with you or with Ree or whichever is the most convenient.
Great. Ree, you want to answer that question?
Yes, of course. I'll put it in the chat as well. But the best email for all of your questions would be info@dri-sa.co.za.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I see it's in the chat already. Great. Thanks, Mark. I hope you have, what is it, 10:30 in the morning, I'm assuming,
Yes.
where
10:30 in
you
the
are?
morning here.
Okay.
Yes.
The day
Yes.
is almost over fast. It's already 5:30 p.m. So have a
Right.
lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank
Take
you for
care, and we'll
extending.
chat again soon.
Chat again soon. Thanks again. Have a
Okay.
good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I'm ending it. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.